37/2018 judge grants Douglas permission to file application to throw out civil suit. His defense team opposes applications. Basseterre, St. Kitts, June 16, 2018. A High Court judge in St. Kitts on Friday gave defense lawyers for Leader of the Opposition, the RT Honorable Dr. Denzil L. Douglas, permission to file an application to throw out a civil matter brought against the island's longest-serving parliamentarian. Friday's court hearing at the Sir Llewellyn Moore Judicial and Legal Services Complex also dealt with 4 applications brought by Anthony Ross, the lawyer for the claimant, Cuthbert Big Chief Mills, a painter from Newton Ground, who the office of Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris promised 15 minutes of fame to pursue Harris's personal vendetta against Dr. Douglas. The first application to the court sought to consolidate Mills' case with that of the Attorney General, Senior the Honourable Vincent Juicy Byron. Our position was simply that the St. Kitts and Nevis Constitution does not allow Mr. Mills to file a claim after the Attorney General has filed or to in any way join the Attorney General's claim, and what he is seeking to do is to piggyback on the Attorney General's claim, for his claim is devoid of any merit, said Angelina Gracie Sukobob, who presented the arguments before Justice Ward. The second application was an application to call expert evidence from Dominica in Dominica law. Our position is that while a Dominican lawyer must give evidence, Mr. Mills had to show that the candidate who he submitted should be an expert on the matters at hand, who deals with citizenship, immigration, and allegiance to a government, said Sukobob after the hearing.
The first application which Mr. Mills' attorney sought to do is to get their matter heard at the same time as the Attorney General's challenge. Our position was simply that the Constitution does not allow Mr. Mills to file a claim after the Attorney General has filed, or to in any way join the Attorney General's claim. And what he's seeking to do is to piggyback on the Attorney General's claim, because his claim is devoid of any merit. The second application was an application for expert evidence to call an attorney at law from Dominica to give evidence. Our position is that while a Dominican lawyer must give evidence, Mr. Mills had to show that the candidate which they submitted should be an expert on the matters at hand, which deals with citizenship, immigration, and allegiance to a government. The candidate submitted by Mr. Mills practices in family law and mediation, and we say that for the purposes of this matter, she cannot be deemed an expert, and therefore the application should fail, having not reached the required threshold.
I want to thank you for being here again.
Yes.
Showing solidarity.
Yes.
She said the candidate whom Mr. Mills submitted practices in family law and mediation. We say that for the purposes of this matter, she cannot be deemed an expert, and therefore the application should fail, having not reached the required threshold, Sukobob said. The third application submitted to Justice Ward, in which Mr. Mills sought to throw out Dr. Douglas' defense, was vigorously opposed by the Leader of the Opposition. Firstly, it was without merit, and secondly, while Dr. Douglas' affidavit was filed 2 days late, it was based on consent from one of Mr. Mills' counsel, and the attempt now, to pretend now, that even though the consent was given for Dr. Douglas' affidavit to be filed 2 days late, the affidavit should not be looked at, is a disingenuous and shaft practice, she submitted. The fourth application, submitted by Anthony Ross on behalf of Mr. Mills, pertained to the Dominica diplomatic passport given to Dr. Douglas following the refusal of St. Kitts and Nevis Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris to provide him with a St. Kitts and Nevis diplomatic passport in his capacity as Leader of the Opposition. It was for him to disclose the diplomatic passport in question. Somehow, there was a submission by Mr. Mills that he was entitled to see Dr. Douglas' passport and to look and see whether it was actually used and where it was used. Again, we opposed it. Quite frankly, the law does not allow the production of the travel documents that are being challenged, and it is not for the defendant to assist Mr. Mills in proving his case. Quite frankly, Mr. Mills has no right or business looking at Dr. Douglas' travel documents from whichever country, said Sukobob. Justice Ward reserved his decisions on the 4 applications submitted by Ross on behalf of Mills. The Douglas defense team made a request to submit a formal application to strike out Mr. Mills' civil suit in its entirety. When stripped to its bearing, it is not a proper claim, it is frivolous, it is vexatious and should be struck out in its entirety, and that Dr. Douglas ought not to be troubled with a political nuisance. The parties returned to court on July 6 when the application to throw out Mr. Mills' case will be heard. Dr. Douglas' legal team on Friday was led by Mr. Delano Bart QC. Photo 1, Angelina Gracie Suko Bob, left, and Delano Bart QC. Photo 2, Leader of the Opposition the RT Honorable Dr. Denzil L. Douglas, left, Delano Bart QC, center, and Central Basseterre Labour MP, Honorable Marcella Liebert. Photo 3, Tony Ross QC, second from the right. Photos 4, Mr. Cuthbert Mills, left, leaving the court after Friday's hearing. Photos 5, 6, and 7, sections of the large crowd that greeted and waited outside the court for Dr. Douglas.
For being here again.
Yes.
Showing solidarity.
Yes.
I want to thank my defense lawyer.
Yes. Yes.
Mrs.
Suko. Yes. Angela Suko. Yes. 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 Yes.
Just as we thought, the
Yes.
case
Let
is
it go.
crumbling. They have already begun to withdraw some of their claims.
Okay.
As I said earlier, this is just political harassment.
Exactly.
We will not only win this, but we will win the election.